Okay, so where is everyone? I'm looking at my dashboard and I see that class is looking super empty. I'm like, is there some national holiday I don't know about? But for those of y'all who made today's class, thank you and glad you can make it. Quick announcement. So in May, actually on May 6th, we will have a guest instructor with us to discuss the benefits and the advantages of creating short-term and long-term goals for your college journey. Because we want all of you to maximize your college experience academically, financially, professionally, socially, and personally. And, I'm going on and didn't even give y'all the name of the guest instructor. So the class will be facilitated by Melody Mills, and she's super incredible, very passionate about human rights, psychology, and political science. And actually, she just recently completed a master's degree from Columbia University and went to undergrad at Macaulay Honors College at Baruch College. Both are located right here in New York City. And also, she's a Fulbright Scholar, which is essentially one of the top international exchange programs in the world. And I can go on and on and on about talking about Melody, but y'all will get a chance to learn more about her. So make sure you mark your calendar, set a reminder in your phones for May 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So today we will be talking about being responsible when it comes to student loan borrowing. And for the two new names I see on my dashboard, I'm Quint Lemkin and the instructor for today's class. And today we really want to go over some important things to keep in mind before you borrow money for college, particularly if you will be the first in your family to attend college. And, we talked in past classes about the many opportunities for getting free money, like grants, like scholarships to go to college. And you want to apply to as, much free money as possible by completing your FAFSA. And also we talked about searching for local scholarships in your community, also scholarships at the state level and the national level, looking for scholarships just to help you fully pay, or perhaps for some students, reduce the amount of money you need to borrow to pay for college. And in other words, not all students will get enough free money to be able to afford, right? To go to school without having to take out some student loans, at least for the first year or for the duration of your college experience journey, which is why I chose to devote this class talking about this stuff. And, my gut tells me that, one of the reasons we may have gotten such a low turnout for today's class, at least in part, is because for many of you, and I can probably only speak for myself in this case, at least I remember hearing so many awful things about student loans before I won a full scholarship to go to college. I remember people talking about student loans like they were, these, a pack of monsters just waiting to chew my head off. And I'm sure y'all can relate. Either you know someone or you read some article on Facebook, or maybe you even saw a meme on Instagram about the nightmare that so many college graduates are facing with their student loans. And I know a few people among my closest friends who deeply regret ever taking out student loans because it's the kind of debt that is almost impossible to get rid of. And one thing I will be emphasizing in today's class is that if you decide to borrow, you only, money for college, you only want to borrow the amount that you absolutely need. Nothing more and definitely nothing less. So today, what I want to talk about is I want to spend about 20 to 30 minutes or so. And I just want to first start off by going over the difference between private and federal student loans. And I'll briefly talk about the interest rates for student loans, which is what is probably the thing that scares most people from being excited about taking out student loans. And then second, I want to do a scan of 4 types of repayment plans, right? We're going to be talking about the standard repayment plan, graduated repayment plan, extended repayment plan, and also income-based driven repayment plans. And then I want to go over some resources just to help you further understand student loans. And then, of course, we do what we always do in our web classes, which is I'll take your questions, and then we'll go over some homework assignments and just talk about some upcoming classes that you might be interested in. All right, so as is our tradition, we always like to warm up with a pop quiz. And I'm going to give you all 60 seconds on this one. And for you returning scholars, you already know the drill. But for my new folks, just want you to be sure to look down below. You should see a Q&A tool in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen if you have joined this class with your laptops, and that's where you're going to be able to answer questions and also just ask questions throughout the course today. And then, of course, if you have dialed into today's class, don't worry, you can just go onto our Facebook page and Scholar Navigator to submit your answers to the pop quiz questions. Alrighty, so let's get started. So first question, what is a student loan? Is it A, money that I do not have to repay? B, money that I have to repay? C, money that I have to repay with interest? Or D, none of the above? Second question, what percentage of college student graduates, what percentage of college students graduate with student loans? Is it A, 60 to 70%? B, 30 to 40%? C, 10 to 20%? Or D, 1 to 5%? All right, we've gone over the 60-minute mark, but I just want us to go ahead and check our answers. Okay, so for the first question, the answer I'm looking for is C. All right, so student loans are not just borrowing money, right? It's not borrowing money that you don't have to pay back. This is money that, in fact, you do need to pay back, and in all likelihood with interest. And I'm not talking about what we do when we borrow a few bucks from, our best friend, maybe Justin, or our best friend Jasmine, or from your auntie Mabel, Uncle Charles, because generally speaking, you're going to have to repay more than what you borrowed in the beginning. And depending on how soon you repay that loan, you could end up paying just, a few $100 or several thousands of dollars in interest. And we'll get into this a bit more, but you must repay a student loan even if your financial circumstances become difficult, right? So your student loans cannot be canceled because let's say you were unsatisfied with your education, or let's say maybe you couldn't get the kind of job in the career field that you studied in college, or even if you, for whatever reason, woke up one morning and you said, you know what, I don't know that I want to continue going to this college, right? No, this college isn't for me, and you decide to leave before graduating, you still have to pay back your student loans. All right, so for the second question, the answer I'm looking for is A, which is 60 to 70%. And you can clearly see here that this is well over the majority of students, which really speaks to a larger issue about, the rising cost of college. And I'm not trying to put the fear of student loans in your heart, but they will definitely be with you forever and ever, ever, and ever, ever until you pay them. And should you decide for whatever reason not to pay them, well, now you have a problem on your hand because not paying your student loans can damage your credit rating. Oh, and by the way, you worked for 2 weeks and just got paid. Well, they can start garnishing or taking money from your checks, and it can, get in the way of getting future financial aid for, let's say, grad school or other post-secondary endeavors. There are other things that can happen to you, and I mean, I can go down that list, but I'm not going to really continue giving you all of the things that could go wrong if you don't repay these loans back. But I'm really wanting to just emphasize the point that this is important stuff, right? And I'm not trying to discourage you, but just want you to make sure that as you think about student loans, that you make the most informed decisions, when pursuing this route. All right, so let's talk about the difference between federal and private student loans. And also, I just want to chew on the concept of interest rates. So for those of you who attended the last three web classes, you know that when you apply for financial aid to go to college, your very first step is to complete the FAFSA form. And you do that by going to www.fafsa.gov, not FAFSA.com or FAFSA.org, but FAFSA.gov. Because again, this is your highway to get access to over 80% of financial aid, to get the help that you need to pay for college. And after you've gone through the process of submitting your FAFSA, the government will calculate all the information that you've provided to come up with something called the estimated family contribution, right? Or the EFC, which is really a number that explains how much money your family or you personally, depending on your circumstances, are able to pay toward the cost of your college education. And we talked about how the EFC number is not saying that you or your family need to, write a check to pay for your college education, or even, go to, one of those places where you can do like a money order and send that in to pay for your college education. That's not what the EFC is really about, right? So, this is really simply saying that based on you or your family's financial circumstances and other things like the number of siblings you have in college and so forth, this is how much you or your family have the ability to pay towards your college education. And if you want to learn more about the EFC that I'm talking about now, you can just go onto Scholar Navigator, and you can see we have a library section, and you can check out one of the web classes that we did. I believe it was on January the 14th, and I really go into more details about the EFC and how it's calculated. Okay, so once the FAFSA form is in and all of that, the federal government, would then, send that information to your dream colleges, and they're going to send you something in the mail called a financial aid award package, right? And they're usually going to send this along with your acceptance letter. And you may see a few different things like grants, scholarships, and loans. And hands down, if you had to choose between grants, scholarships, work study, or student loans, there's no doubt about it, you should go with grants, scholarships, and even work study, right? Because again, grant scholarships, that's free money that you don't need to repay. Or in the case of work study, I mean, that's money that you can earn by getting a part-time job on your campus. But, as we found out earlier in the pop quiz, again, nearly between 60 and 70% of college students graduate from college with student loan debt. All right, and I don't know about you, but that's quite clear to me that, some students will just have to, in fact, the majority of students will have to fund part of most of their college education with student loans. And my goal in today's class is just to help you get a clear sense of things to keep in mind before you sign any paperwork for student loans. All right, and so the first thing to know is that not all student loans are created equally, right? So let me just kind of explain more about, what do I mean by that? So some loans are provided by the federal government, some by the state government, and then you have some colleges and career schools that offer loans. And then there are private loans from banks and other private organizations. But we can basically group student loans into two categories. You have federal and you have private. By the way, do y'all see that side eye in this picture? Okay, so let's start first with talking about federal student loans. And as you can see here, there's a number of federal student loans, but I want to point out just a few. Specifically, I want to talk about those that were created by or just created for students like me, students who grew up or who are currently growing up with high financial need. And then we want to talk about federal loans that are non-need based, meaning they are not based on your financial need. And then, before I even continue on, let me just kind of like slow it down just a bit, just so I can connect some dots here, right? So you remember we talked about the EFC number earlier, being what is used to calculate your financial need. Well, if your EFC is very low, then the federal government will say you are a student that requires a lot more financial help. And so you will most likely qualify for a Perkins loan, which is a federal loan that is, specifically for students with high financial need. So if you are a student who grew up with limited money, like I did, then you might be able to obtain a Perkins loan, which tends to have, really good, really favorable interest rates. And I'm sure most of y'all have just a really good sense of what I mean by interest rates, right? So let me just explain it just briefly. So when I say interest rate, for now, I just want you to keep in mind that it's the amount that you are charged to borrow money. And when I say the Perkins loan has favorable interest rates, let me give you more color and context of what I mean. The interest rate right now today for the Perkins loan is 5%, which is lower than many other student loans. But here's why I get super excited about Perkins loans, right? So the federal government will pay the interest for you while you're in school, but that means you need to be enrolled at least half or at least half time. And you want to talk to the college you plan to attend and just find out what they consider to, as a half-time or a full-time enrollee. Also, the federal government will pay the interest while the loan is in deferment or during your grace period. And by deferment, I simply mean, postponing, your loan. And maybe you need to postpone your loan because, as y'all already know, life can sometimes come at you fast. And, sometimes you need to request to postpone your loan payment because let's say maybe there are some financial concerns, family emergencies, medical emergencies, or other life concerns or emergencies. By the way, when I said about the grace period, what I mean there is that after you graduate from college, you will, have, several months before you need to start paying your student loans. Okay, so what was I saying? Because this is probably sort of going down in a direction that was good, but also I want to make sure we stay on track here. So again, let's go back to what I was saying earlier. So when you get the Perkins loan, the government will cover the interest for you while you're in school. But once you've graduated and have gotten through your grace period, then you will be responsible for the interest that is added to your loan. And sometimes students ask, rightfully so, the question of, so how much money do I get, like, in terms of borrowing a Perkins loan? And what I've decided to do is I'm going to actually read something to you that I found on studentaid.gov, which is a federal government website that I recommend as a great resource for understanding financial aid for college. So this is what I found, and I just kind of printed out something I'm going to read to you. Okay, it says the amount you borrow depends on your financial need, the amount of other aid you receive, and the availability of funds at your college or career school. You should apply for federal student aid early to make sure you are considered for a Perkins loan. Due to limited funds, not everyone who qualifies for a Perkins loan will receive one. If you are an undergraduate student, you may be eligible to receive up to $5,500 a year. The total you can borrow as an undergraduate is $27,500. Okay, did y'all catch that? All right, so the maximum you can borrow each year is $5,500. All right, and the total you can get while you are an undergraduate is $27,500. But the bummer with the Perkins loan is that your school may or may not participate in the Perkins loan program. So if you think you may qualify, given your financial circumstances, then what I want you to do is research online, call, or even email your schools on your short list just to confirm whether those colleges you're interested in attending, whether they participate in the Perkins loan program. All right, well, let's just hypothetically say that you're one of those students who qualified for a Perkins loan, right? But for whatever reason, you don't receive one. So I'm sure your question to me is, so what do I do next? So I want you to know that you also have the option to apply for a non-need-based loan called a direct unsubsidized loan. And I'm going to just completely be transparent here and say that, this is not exactly my favorite choice, but it's also not my least favorite choice. And let me just say that a different way, right? So whenever you have the option to choose between a subsidized or unsubsidized loan, you want to go with the subsidized loan. But again, if the subsidized loan isn't an option for whatever reason, or it's just not enough to cover all of your college expenses, then at least let's talk about non-subsidized loans. So at least you have a decent idea of what you're signing up for. Okay, so first, it's important for you to be very clear that if you take out an unsubsidized loan, the minute that money is dispersed to you or to your college, that money begins accruing interest. And the government is not going to pay that interest for you while you are in school. And one more thing before we go on with unsubsidized loans, there is a cap on how much you can borrow in a given year. But here's something that's really cool. There's also an option around a direct plus loan, which is a type of unsubsidized loan that your parents, not you, the student, right? Your parents can apply for on your behalf to help you pay for college. Because with the direct plus loan, your parents, as I said earlier, can borrow on your behalf, and they can actually, which is pretty cool, they can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid like grants and scholarships that you may have received. But even though your parents will have to borrow the plus loan on your behalf, I'm going to say it again because every chance I get an opportunity to remind you, I'm going to remind you. You still have to submit your FAFSA to even qualify, for your parents to qualify for the plus loan. Again, I want to get y'all in the habit of going to studentaid.gov when you have questions that either I didn't answer or that your high school counselor or mentor, didn't answer for you. But definitely go visit studentaid.gov to learn more about the different eligibility requirements for the unsubsidized loan, for the subsidized loan, and so forth. But what I want to do right now is I actually want to change gears and I want to start talking about private loans, right? And the main thing I want to say about private loans is that I want each of you to be a bit more careful when borrowing private student loans. And let me explain what I mean by that. So the federal government offers some really cool advantages and benefits. At least I think so. And they're willing to work with you, especially in the event that you need to postpone making payments towards your federal student loans for whatever reasons, right? For a number of important reasons that, again, that I mentioned earlier. But that being said, with private loans, and let me just also just throw in state loans and loans that you may get from the college or career school that you've been accepted to attend, you want to check the fine print on the interest rate you will be paying. All right. And if those private student loans rates are greater than 6.31%, which as of today, at least, is the interest rate for the plus loan, then strongly consider not taking out, okay, that private loan, because as I said a few minutes ago, the plus loan allows your parents to borrow, on your behalf, at least enough money to pay for the cost of attendance. Also, when it comes to private loans, keep in mind that private student loans, may require you to make payments while you are still in school. And let me tell you something, there is nothing worse than studying for 3 or 4 final exams and worrying about making sure your bank account has enough money to auto draft that student loan payment, right? That private student loan payment. Also, private loans may have super high interest rates, right? I've seen some interest rates as much as 18%, 19%. And some private loans don't even offer you a reasonable option to postpone your payment in, cases of financial emergencies. So because the repayment process for private student loans, they are not, the process isn't exactly the same as the repayment process for federal student loans. I'm planning on just doing a separate class in the future that just only talks about the repayment process for private loans, and maybe we'll make that class like a super quick, maybe like a 10-15 minute class session. But for now, I want to spend about 5 minutes and just talk really briefly about the repayment process for federal student loans. And then for now, I'm going to just go over 4 repayment plans. All right. And the first I want to talk about, you got your standard repayment plan, which is the most basic of them all. And this one is so basic that, I'm not going to spend more than 30 seconds on this one, which means you will make, equal payments over a period of time. For example, you will pay at least, $50 each month for 10 years. The next plan, the second plan you have, would be a graduated repayment plan, which means you will start off with really low payments, and then slowly but surely they will increase every 2 years. And you will start off with these low payments because the federal student loan folks are assuming that once you graduate from college, you will need a little wiggle room to find a job, maybe get a promotion, start banking in those coins. And again, I can't give you an estimate of how much those earlier payments will be, but I can tell you that they will make sure your payments are higher than your monthly interest. So let's say if your monthly interest is, say, $70, then your monthly bill will be at least $78. Okay, so the third plan you have would be the extended repayment plan, which is another basic plan. In fact, I want you to go back to what I said earlier about the standard repayment plan. And instead of 10 years, I want you to spread out those payments for 25 years. And generally, you're going to, you'll be making lower, the payments in comparison to the payments made under the standard and graduated repayment plans. But don't be fooled by the low payments here, because with this plan you will be paying much more in the end because of the interest that will be adding up. Okay, so the fourth plan you have would be the income-driven plans, which is not going to, I'm not going to really go into heavy details about right now, because I'm going to have a homework assignment for you all, that I want you to go onto Scholar Navigator's Facebook page and read an article that I'm going to post for you. And just really want to give you something to do. But I want, just to mention that there, are various types of income-driven repayment plans. And again, the article that I'm going to post at some point, I want you to check it out because it's going to give you, some more details about those various plans. But the big picture overview that I'm going to say right now is that when you think about income driven repayment, just keep in mind that an income driven repayment plan really tries to set your monthly student loan payments at an amount that is as affordable as possible for you given your income, maybe your family size. But again, check out that article on Scholar Navigator's Facebook page just to get more details. All right. So that was pretty quick, right? So that's all for today's web class. And since we have a super small class today, we have more time for questions. Or if y'all want to end class earlier and ask your questions later, that's totally fine too. So I'm gonna toss it back out to you all. Do folks have a preference? Okay, so let's just wrap class early then. But let me just quickly go over some important resources I want you to keep in mind. The first, being to remember to speak with your high school, college counselor. I'm going to always repeat this for you all in case you need, more support. Also, know that you should feel absolutely comfortable contacting, either by phone or by email the colleges on your short list, right? Reaching out to their financial aid office because my philosophy is if this is where you're planning to spend the next 4 years of your life, you should feel absolutely supported and comfortable engaging with those colleges right now while you are in high school. All right. Also, I said it before, I'm going to say it again and again and again. Make sure you go online to studentaid.gov, G-O-V, to get answers to questions on how to pay for college. And let's just quickly touch on the homework assignment. So I want y'all to, go ahead and register for our next web class on March the 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will be talking about how to think about your college major and also just try to, bridge the connection between your career aspirations and your college majors. So you know the drill. You can go to our website, scholarnavigator.org, and you'll be able to, register for the webinar on the 11th of March. But then also you'll be able to see other webinars that will be taking place that you might be interested in. All right. So that is all I got for you all today. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Take care.